Well, the Federal High Court in Abuja has restrained the Senate Committee on Ethics, Privileges and Public Petitions from conducting disciplinary proceedings against Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan. Obiora Igwatu, the presiding judge, gave the order following an ex parte application filed by counsels to Akpoti-Uduaghan. She had been invited to appear before the Senate's disciplinary committee probing her alleged case of misconduct. Now, with this order, all disciplinary proceedings against Akpoti-Uduaghan have been put on hold until a further judicial review. I'm joined now by Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Johnny Agim, and Public Affairs Analyst, Chibuzo Okereke. Of course, he has some experience with the workings of the National Assembly, and he'll be, lending his expertise or understanding tonight. Welcome, gentlemen. Let me first take you on, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. Let's start. I mean, there's so much, happening, but we have to just try to unpack what is important. Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan, Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan, refused to appear before the Ethics Committee on the strength of an ex parte order. And the question is, can one arm of government stop the other arm from functioning, from carrying out its statutory duties or obligations?
Okay, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Firstly, when a court is approached for interpretation of any act of any arm of government, the court is bound to determine such an issue. And in this instance, we are told that the person in question, the senator in question, Natasha Akpoti, approached the court, and I'm sure her reasons for that might be in defense of her fundamental rights. And so if you approach the court and you ask the court to restrain anyone from stopping you or carrying any act that you feel will be injurious to you, why not? And once that order is made, the respondents, in this instance, the National Assembly, are bound to obey that order.
Where does the doctrine of separation of powers fit in here?
Yes, but you see, the constitutional duty of the court is to interpret the act of anyone, including the National Assembly or other two arms of government, both the executive and the legislature. So in this instance, I want to believe that the invitation of Natasha Akpoti, the senator in question here, is to the interpretation of maybe her right that she feels has been breached or is intended to be breached. So in that instance, the court is not restricted from taking out such an action, except if the court, it's shown that the court has gone outside its constitutional duties. But in this instance, if it is just for the court to interpret the violation of our rights, then there won't be anything to say that the court has.
Okay, well, I'll come back to you, and so that we can define exactly the rights in specific terms, and whether it will affect how the court decides the case, either way. Sunday Okereke, let me come to you. I mean, you understand the workings of the National Assembly. We saw there where Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan relied on a number of orders. Order 10 from the get-go, and today she still came under Order 10. Order 40 also played out in terms of where she sought protection. Help us understand these rules of the Senate that even the Senate president had to shelve somewhat just to please Senator Akpoti-Uduaghan. Give us an understanding of this.
Well, thank you very much. First of all, the Constitution under Section 60 empowers the National Assembly and indeed the Senate and the House of Representatives to make rules to govern its own procedure. So it's like a subsidiary legislation pursuant to the powers given to them under the Constitution. Right. And then in Section 62 also, they're empowered to establish committees to manage the affairs of the Senate. Now, a number of issues have come up, and I can tell you that the Senate is going through what I call crisis of procedure.
Right.
Senator Natasha emerged today and then presented, she came under Order 40 to present a petition. Yes, by in person. By the provisions of Order 40, you can present a petition and these prescriptions are made as to how those petitions are to be presented. One, the petitioners must sign the petition and address it properly with words of decorum to the Senate, and it must be presented through a senator. In this respect, if she's presenting it herself and it's a petition that concerns her, following that rule, maybe her constituent or a team of lawyers should have made it and she will lay it. But there is more for that.
Right.
In terms of administration of petition in the Senate, when a legislator or a senator presents a petition, like what you could observe there, the Senate President gave her the audience to present the petition, and then the petition was laid, and the Senate President ruled on the matter, referring it to the Ethics, Code of Conduct, and Public Petitions Committee. Now, after that, you now started having a point of order being raised. Those actions on their own are a breach of procedure, because only the Committee on Ethics, at that time, the rule has gone, has that competence when it's transmitted to them to determine the fate of that petition. And remember, under Section 62(4) of the Constitution, the committees do not have finality. They only sit and make recommendations to the Senate at plenary. So when that order came that the petition was incompetent, to me, interpreting the rules of procedure is putting the cart before the horse. And there was no motion to vacate the decision of the Senate President or rescind the early order made. So that was the crisis. And then even had deeper issue where the committee chairman on ethics and the code of conduct of the Senate determined the petition even before it was transmitted to him. Administratively speaking, when a resolution is taken, it takes at least 24 hours, because that resolution taken today to refer the petition to the Ethics Committee will be approved tomorrow by the vote and proceedings, signed. On the right of the approval of vote and proceedings, then the clerk will transmit that resolution to the appropriate committee to start consideration. So I believe they are facing, maybe because high turnover, a lot of issues, experience issues, even the order 10. You know, I have told people in the first instance, we heard Senator Natasha shouting, order 10, please, order please, order please.
Yes.
In terms of semantics and use of language in the Senate, order please is exclusive preserve of the whip of the Senate to bring decorum to the chamber.
So what seems
It's
to be
not raising a point of order. And I need to say this about points of privileges. Points of privileges under Order 10 is anchored on the prescriptions of the Legislative House Powers and Privileges Act. It is something that you come with a substantive motion, and you must point to the privileges that has been breached. It is not a rule of debate that you use to contribute in the floor. You don't use Order 10 to contribute to debate. You use Order 10 to activate the spirit of the Legislative House Powers and Privileges Act 2004. And these are the procedural breaches that are going on that should be addressed.
Senior advocate, I mean, with my corner eye, I saw you, nodding in affirmation, and agreeing with many of the things that Sunday Okereke has said. But in shunning the Ethics Committee on the strength of that ex parte order, I mean, what options really are there that Senator Akpoti Uduaghan, could have, resorted to?
Okay, once an order of court has been made, everybody is bound to obey that order. So in this instance, she was the one who went to court. And so the moment the court made that order, and I believe that order had been served on the National Assembly, then everybody, including Senator Natasha Akpoti herself, were bound to obey that order. So she was within her right to have stayed away from that meeting. Because you see, you can't go to court. Yeah. We are well within our rights to understand what the law is. But you see, once an order of court is made, everybody is bound to obey that order. So I want to believe that her reason for not appearing before the committee was because this order was made, even though in her favor, and it's been served on the National Assembly. So
is there a possibility, let me remain with you, Senior Advocate, is there a possibility that at the beginning of her tenure as a senator, maybe she did not, keep herself abreast of the rules governing the Senate or the National Assembly as a whole? Is it possible that this might be part of the problems that Senator Natasha, Akpoti-Uduaghan is facing now?
Well, for me, those are different
because
issues.
Some observers would say she seems to be stumbling at, at so many points.
Well, those are not procedural issues of the Senate as regards her responsibility and her call of duty at the National Assembly.
Right.
But talking about the order of court that was made, which was the reason and the basis for her not appearing before the committee, she was within her rights. Because if she had appeared before the committee, she herself would have been in contempt of the order of court that was made today.
You are disagreeing there?
Yes.
On the issue of she was within her rights?
I agree with him to the extent that we don't know what they presented to the court. As far as we are concerned, they may have also presented a picture. However, like you mentioned, the doctrine of separation of power and even the constitutional provisions does not allow, because if you read section 4 sub 8 of the Constitution, that gave judicial review power over the National Assembly exercise of the legislative powers, you will find that clearly that he said the judiciary only had jurisdiction in terms of National Assembly exercising the legislative powers. I am not sure whether she studied the Legislative House Powers and Privileges Act, because section 21 of it talks about pre-action notice. That before you sue the National Assembly, you have to give at least 3 months notice to the clerk.
Right.
So that one aside, section 14 of the Legislative House Powers and Privileges Act finds her action a contempt of legislative house by not appearing before that committee. And I don't see, I'm one of those people who said the judiciary must also be careful the role they play in our democracy. Imagine if the National Assembly resolves by resolution transmitted to the CJN that the Supreme Court should not, or the election petition tribunals should not entertain the election petition, that they have checked it and everything is in order.
Right.
Imagine if the Federal Executive Council resolves that by their understanding, no need to bring budget to the National Assembly anymore. That's an invitation to anarchy. So no judicial, no court of competent jurisdiction should grant this type of order, because they also have a room to use the report of that committee to file it, for litigation in court. So that, because the job of the judiciary in terms of how the 3 arms of government function is for checks and balances.
Okay,
they will review procedure, but you don't stop them from taking their constitutionally assigned rights.
Senior Advocate, we heard from the committee there that the petition on sexual harassment that Ms. Uduaghan, submitted before the Senate is dead on arrival, for the simple reason that it is already before the court, or if they do find out that it's already before the court. Very quickly.
Now, you see, I think I need to clarify an issue here.
Yes, please.
You see, the powers donated to the court by the Constitution gives it the virus to determine any issue
regardless
that is brought before it.
Right.
That is one. Secondly, the determination that the court would have made with regards to the order, because it was an ex parte order, the court wouldn't have made an order restraining the National Assembly from carrying out its duties. Okay. It could only have been an order inviting the National Assembly to appear before it, to state its own side of the story before the court to make an order. So when the court makes an interim injunction, that interim injunction, irrespective of whether the fact that is presented before the court is right or wrong, everybody that order is made to respond to
is bound
by that order. Yeah.
Okay, we'll have to leave it there. We're better enlightened on these issues, and it's a developing story. We hope that this will end in a good place. Johnny Agim is Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Sunday Okereke, Public Affairs Analyst. Thank you very much for joining us on Newsnight.